It's been a while. Welcome back to the what do we call this? The Thunderdome, the Sun Belt Conference. This has been a lot of fun, and now football season's right around the corner. Scott, I'm gonna let you know a little secret up here. There's spring football going on in the FCS, and it has been a wild ride for me. So football never ended for me. How's it been for you since the last time we talked?
Football ended. It ended here. It's been very footballless. I was hoping for some kind of news cycle, something to happen in the Sun Belt, but it's been really quiet the last couple months, and there's been no reason to bring this back together. Even the signing day. I mean, everybody signed all their players in December, so that wasn't even a big deal. And there just hasn't been much reason to get back together and do this podcast. But here we are.
It it has been really quiet, all quiet on the Western Front for the Sun Belt Conference, especially in the Sun Belt West. I haven't seen a ton of fun things. In the East, at least, there's been a little bit of like ripples. You know what I mean? Like there's been a little bit of like post Coastal Carolina, great season. What does this mean for them? There's been a couple of college football writers who have really wanted to shake the cage and kind of talk about the Sun Belt East being the premier side of the conference. So there's been a couple of things. Then of course pro days, which we're going to get to here in a second. But you're right. It's been pretty quiet, I think.
It has been, but we're getting to that point where things are going to start ramping up because today we'll talk about spring and how the rosters look. But here in the coming months, we're going to start seeing some guys kind of come out, leave some programs, maybe some transfers in during the summer, and of course all that offseason stuff. We'll spend the next few months arguing over who's better than who and all that. And we'll get to it. It'll be very fun.
Well, the transfer portal is open, and so is the newsletter, Scott. This is where you get to plug your incredible newsletter, which I'm going to tell you right now, I signed up on day one, have not looked back since. It's been great to show up in my inbox.
That's really good to hear. I enjoy writing it. It's been a lot of fun. You should subscribe. If you don't subscribe, it's in my Twitter, my pinned tweet. If you do subscribe, don't unsubscribe, or I will go to your house and I'll stare at you until you resubscribe. So just get on that. It's really good. We talk about Sunbelt football. We try to get as many interviews as possible. This past week we had your guy Colton McWilliams at Texas State. He got us some really good quotes and got us a great story over there. And that's what we're doing every week. We're trying to talk to coaches and players, and we put those quotes in our newsletter. I think it's a great way to stay engaged throughout the offseason, because I think that's something that the Sunbelt kind of lacks. There's not that one Sunbelt medium out there that you see tweets from and you see stories from and you see reports from, like that for like the whole conference. That just doesn't exist. So I feel like we're trying to fill this void with this newsletter and with our podcast, our Twitter account, and all that stuff. And it's going well. We're closing in on like 100 subscribers. I think we got like 81 right now. So get us to 100. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to try to get there before the season starts and get on board with that. Like I said, we cover a lot of ground with the newsletter.
Newsletter is great, people. If you haven't subscribed to it, it's this podcast plus a little bit more, because they actually have interviews and it's not just two guys going back and forth. All right, let's talk about the number one team in the conference, the team that stole everybody's hearts except App State fans. It's Coastal Carolina here. And they come in with a really interesting offseason because now they have a target on their back. They've got expectations. But you have we talked a little bit pre-show, they have a lot of special talents that they're going to have to either replace or they got better in. And we'll start with the running back room to go off the bat here. Their offense wasn't predicated on the pass. I didn't think. I think they had a really good pass offense, but I thought that in the trenches, they won a lot of battles. They were able to move the ball up and down the field with a really good run game. This year, how are they going to revamp that? Because they lost a big guy in the backfield.
Yeah, I think that they're going to – what the main thing is, I feel like they're going to expand the passing game a little bit. Talking to Coach Tadwell in the newsletter, he talked about how he wanted to see more wide receivers get involved. Last year, we saw Javen Hiley and Isaiah Likely at tight end and C.J. Marable. Those were your three targets the entire season. So he talked about getting more wide receivers in the game and involved. Grayson McCall, I've heard, still he looks sharp as ever. They don't expect any sophomore slump out of him. But at running back, there's a few options that they're going to go to. They had a couple guys. You don't really see a lot of running back 2A and 2B situations, but that's what they had last year. I'm trying to pull up their names so I can remember them. Reese White and Shamari Jones. Those two guys, they're going to step up into that role. They'll be the next ones. I think it'll be kind of a replace Marable's production by committee type deal. I don't think any running back's going to take over like Marable. My biggest thing, what I'm looking forward to, is are they going to use these running backs in the pass game? So I was looking at the numbers. Jones and White, never. I mean, they were never even sort of involved in the passing game, which is weird. When you have one running back that's involved in getting 30 receptions a season, you would think that they throw it together running backs. If they don't, they didn't at all. But I think that they're going to do that a little bit. I think they're going to try a few guys out. But I think for the most part, we're going to see something different out of Coastal on offense. I think it'll be the same pistol option type stuff. But,
is that good though? Because that's what I would worry about. That's what I worry about with Coastal.
I think it's good because if you go out there and you try to run the same thing with highly and likely, that's going to get shut down. I mean, that's only two options. Last year you had highly likely, Marable, and McCall could do things with his feet. You had a lot of different options, but if you take away the running backs and you say the only thing we can do is throw the ball to the outside of highly or throw it inside to likely, that's not going to work this year around. I mean, that's kind of the problem when you got that target on your back, when you do so well, when you got a freshman quarterback that takes over. It's typically the defenses and the defensive coordinators that find ways, that watch the film for a whole season and learn to shut it down. And I think that getting more players involved is the way to counteract that for Coastal Carolina. So that's their big thing. They finished spring practice before I even opened the newsletter. They were done so fast. They got to work immediately after the season. So I think that's what we're looking for out of Coastal is just more faces in the game.
Is that a good thing? Because, like I mentioned, we have spring football going on in the FCS right now, and I enjoy it. I like it. But it is weird. It is kind of different, I think, the fact that Coastal's done with their spring. And a lot of these guys, they're not going to be back on the field till middle July. You know what I mean? So it's kind of weird in that regard. So I just what do you think about that?
I'm not going to jump out and say that it's a bad thing because we've actually seen App State. They're typically the ones to do that. The last few years, they've always started their spring practice first, and they've gone in February. And I think they've started late January before. But it's I think with every team, it might be different. Depends on how they do it. Depends on when they're doing workouts and how they're trying to squeeze everything in. But with App State, it worked just fine. They kept winning football games. So we'll see how it works with Coastal.
Now, this is going to be the conversation we're going to have for, 12 months, the expectations on Coastal. So expectation, we're going to do this throughout the season, Scott, if we can remember to do it. Expectation level right now for Coastal Carolina in April, where do we have it? Scale 1 to 10.
I think the expectations are extremely high. I think for Coastal, talking to Jeffrey Gunter, it seems like they're not comfortable with where they are. They did not win the Sun Belt Championship game. They didn't play it, and they know that. And they know that they hear the fans talking. This is all in the newsletter too. They hit Jeffrey Gunter. He said this to me. We've seen it on Twitter. We've seen the hate that we get. We see the fluke here. We see the flash in the pan tweets.
It's from two fan bases. It's from
They are
Coastal.
not done. They are not done. They are not comfortable with where they're at. They're not, they're not in a situation where you got a team they're cocky. I think people who see this team and think they're cocky, they're overconfident, they're going to get their butt whooped. This team has something to prove. That's what Gunter told me. They are out to prove themselves still. They still have a championship game to win. So I think that the expectation is really high, and I think that it's high for them too.
All right. Well, it's from two fan bases. It's from the Raging Cajuns and it's from the Mountaineers. And there's nobody else in the conference right now who I think else? Everybody looks at Coastal.
Who else? Who else even matters?
That's true. All right. That's fair. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk a little bit more about the eastern side of the bracket. We got Troy. And our little notes here, you talked about this quarterback battle, but I want to start off by saying I don't think it's a quarterback battle. I think that there's one guy right now who is head and shoulders ahead in this type of fight, and that would be, I think, Gunnar Watson. Because I looked at this, and I looked on the Troy Athletic page, And I looked at this, and it says Troy's backup quarterback played in 6 different games. Okay, little feather in the hat. Played a half against Missouri, 5 of 9, 58 yards, whatever. And I was like, when did Troy play Missouri? Because it wasn't last year. What was that score? Do you want to guess the score at halftime for that game, Scott?
It was a lot. It was a lot to a little.
It was 42-7. So
Yeah.
no kidding that this guy played in the second half. I don't know why this is like that big of a deal, but I do think that he's going to be the guy to start games for Troy come fall.
Gunnar Watson. Yeah, Gunnar Watson was he's been a very good quarterback in my opinion. For whatever fans not huge on him, he started all last year. And I think he did a good job. He completed over 70% of his passes. This is not a runaway train type deal that you're thinking. There originally were 4 quarterbacks involved in this. One had a wrist issue. He's had to have surgery, so he's out of it. Jacob Free was the backup quarterback last year. I just learned today through a source that he is out of the quarterback competition. He is done. Missouri transfer Taylor Powell is neck and neck with Gunnar Watson right now. He's doing very well in practice. I've seen a lot of people are raving about him. Apparently, this past Saturday he didn't have his best day. The Saturday before he did do really well, but there's a spring game coming up this Saturday. Unfortunately, I'll miss it. But that's going to be a huge deal because, like I've heard, Watson and Powell, they're right next to each other. And I don't think that this is going to be called, this race, until the 3rd week of fall camp, in my opinion, at least. I think that it's close.
Yeah, well, and then you also have to consider, are they going to call it at all? Is anybody at Troy actually going to say, "Hey, this is our starter for week 1"? They're gonna play with it until week 1, and then you're going to see Watson take the field for the first snaps of the 2021-22 season.
That might be the case. Last year, it was between Watson and really Parker McNeil, and I thought it was Watson all the way. I never even thought for a second that McNeil had a shot, and then apparently McNeil just fell off the cliff over the last couple of weeks of fall camp, and it was Watson for sure. But this year, I think it's a little bit different. I think that coaches really, really like Taylor Powell. Who knows? And of course, Chip Lindsey might not say a word until never. He might just send out Gunnar Watson that first day, that first game. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, it is not a given right now for Gunnar Watson. It's a tight race.
I believe it. And as somebody who is a veteran of the quarterback race, having 2 quarterbacks last year, we had 2 starting quarterbacks. I can tell you that for Troy fans, if you've never gone through this before, if this is your first 2 quarterback battle, have fun, because if nobody comes out on top, the fans come out on the bottom for sure. You do not want to have.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a dangerous situation. Texas State was in that situation. UL Monroe really suffered from that as well last year, going back and forth between their 2 quarterbacks. Arkansas State was by design, but as you called like halfway through the season, it was going to fail, and it did. But knowing Chip Lindsey, he's a guy that wants to use one quarterback and one quarterback only. So
because he's a smart coach. Look, anybody who who was it? The Notre Dame head coach a couple years ago. Who was it? Oh, forget it. Notre Dame did Notre Dame did the 2 quarterback deal, and I remember watching on NBC at night, and they were like, "Oh, it's like a starting and a reliever pitch." No, it never works. It never ever works. In Troy, if you're smart, fans are smart. They know it's good. You got to pick one quarterback going forward, otherwise the whole thing falls apart. All right, let's talk about Georgia State. You want to talk about the maturation of Quad Brown, or do you want to talk about the 3rd best team in the East? What do you want to start here? Because I don't think they're the 3rd best team in the East.
Who is?
I don't want them to be. That's the thing. Because they are the team, probably Troy. I guess Troy would probably be my pick to be the 3rd best team in the East. It's not Southern. App State's probably 1 or 2. So, yeah, somebody has to be 3rd. I guess it would be Georgia State. But, man, I hate the fact that they're the 3rd best team in the East.
They're right now they're loaded. They have a ton of talent coming back. They lost really 1 or 2 guys on defense and nobody on offense. I mean, they got everybody back. 11 starters out of 11. And for Quad Brown, I think that it's a big deal to have him back because the quarterback room is so different this year.
Mm-hmm.
You got last year, it was all freshmen fighting for the job, all freshmen. And Quad Brown came out on top. This year, you got one of those freshmen a year older who's battling right behind him. And then you've got Darren Granger from Furman has transferred in. I watched Darren Granger in person a couple years ago. He played at Georgia State. Darren Granger played one good game at Furman his entire career. It was that game. He had like 500 yards of offense that game. It was insane. It was unreal. And I had to feel like that game was the reason why Sean Elliott went out and got him when he hit the transfer portal. Because Granger looked phenomenal in that game against Georgia State. And now he's in that quarterback room. And I feel like both of those guys, the backup from last year, Darren Granger, are pushing Quad Brown in a way that he's never been pushed before. And I think that it is Quad Brown's job. I think Brown is going to win. I think Brown's in the lead. I think Brown is the starter. I mean, right now. And I think that helps. I think having that confidence and having good, experienced players behind him is going to make a big difference this year.
Now, what does it say that you just mentioned? I think they lost one starter on defense. The offense is pretty much the same, and we would still pick them third in that side of the bracket, right?
Yeah, we would, because you have the known commodity in App State that you cannot pick against. There's no reason to ever pick against App State right now. They have to give us the reason to pick against them. And then there's Coastal Carolina, that a team that we just want them to succeed for whatever reason on this podcast. So we're going to
we picked Coastal Carolina because we love the offensive line. We love the defensive line. I love the quarterback and I love the head coach. And also they're not somebody that everybody in the conference hates. They're a team that people enjoy. Coastal Carolina was fun to watch. And I think that they should have single-handedly tanked Zach Wilson's draft stock. And somehow people have just burned the tape on that. People have just burned the Zach Wilson Coastal Carolina tape. I don't know where that went.
Yeah. Ask the Jordan Strong about Zach Wilson. And he'll call himself the Heisman killer. Zach Wilson did not look great in that game.
It should have tanked his draft stock completely, but now I'm listening to the radio and people are like, well, is Zach Wilson better than Trevor Lawrence? Like, what do we think? No, Coastal Carolina ate his lunch, and that.
I just saw today that the weakness to Zach Wilson. Somebody posted it, some big account. I can't remember who it was. They said untested against defensive pressure. What do you mean untested? He went against Jeffrey Gunter and Teron Jackson and was garbage. He's not untested. He got tested once and he did not perform.
Yeah, that'd be like I never took the SAT. Yeah, you did, and you got a 10. Okay, like come on. It frustrates the hell out of me because I like Zach Wilson. I think he's a good guy, but man, put some respect on Coastal's name, man. All right, let's talk about App State. They lose a lot of starters. They lost Zach Thomas, Shamir James, Charles. They lose a bunch of offensive linemen. The wide receiver room, got hit. It's back.
Yeah. They lost a lot and they brought back a lot. That's what I was trying to put in the outline there. The wide receiver room, Sean Jolly, Demetrius Taylor, they're all back. So what I was trying to convey is that they lost a lot of players, but they're bringing back a lot of star players, which kind of creates this weird situation where they've got a lot of star power, but a lot of holes to fill, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're a better writer than a podcast co-host. I'll tell you that much. Look, you can't say.
There's a semicolon.
They lost a lot, but they also gained a lot. Yeah, we didn't win the war, but we made the friends along the way. Like, okay, cool. So what do we look at right now for App State? Because they lost Zach Thomas, the most overrated quarterback in Sun Belt Conference football history. So where do we go from there?
We go to Chase Bryce. This was a really, really much needed pickup because they had absolutely nobody else. I mean, it was going to be. I mean, if you're talking in a Major League Baseball way, a replacement level quarterback was going to step in, and you could see the Mountaineers' offense kind of taking a step back. But they went and got a quarterback who's played at Clemson. He's played at Duke for two coaches that have been phenomenal at coaching quarterbacks. So Chase Bryce, there's a lot of expectations that are kind of levied on him right now. I've been reading, press releases and all the spring practice recaps. He's doing really well. The players like him. He's doing well working with the first team right now. So I think that's a good thing. And you got to remember, this is App State. App State has never asked their quarterbacks to do anything special, ever. They need somebody to step in, complete a few passes, and hand off to their host or running back. That's App State football. And Chase Bryce he's that kind of quarterback.
Why? This goes back to what I've been saying before. Why do we think Zach Thomas was so good? That's forever going to be a confusing statement to me because he was preseason, people were talking about him being the best quarterback in the conference. I was, at least. And that went down the drain really quickly. So whatever. Where would you put this guy right now? Where would you put Bryce right now in the Sun Belt Conference quarterback room? Like, you got to pick a quarterback out of this conference. Is he number 1? Is he number 3? Where do you put him in April?
This is hard because I haven't even written anything down, because I think right away Grayson McCall is 1 or 2. I think Gunnar Watson would be up there, but he may not even win the quarterback job. Quad Brown is up there to me for sure. Lane Hatcher, Arkansas State, is above Chase Bryce. Would you put Brady McBride above Chase Bryce?
I would put Brady McBride above my parents. I love Brady McBride.
Well, there you go then. I mean, I think right now Chase Bryce is probably bottom 3 if we go ahead and do the rankings right now. I think he's number 7, just straight up guessing number 7.
And okay, again, this is April. We have a lot of time. Things are going to change. But if you told me that App State has a bottom 3 quarterback, I would say they're probably not going to win the conference with a bottom 3 quarterback.
Look, when they went from Taylor Lamb to Zach Thomas, I very specifically remember ranking Zach Thomas, I think, 8th or 9th in my quarterback rankings ahead of that season. It didn't matter at all. They still won a conference championship that year. So we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on that as we move forward in the conference. All right, let's talk a little bit more. Georgia Southern, they got a new offensive coordinator. Most production lost in the East, according to our number 1 writer, Scott. All right, so they lose a bunch of production. Georgia Southern, this is a team that I didn't think we weren't high on them to end the season, if I'm correct. We weren't super high on them to end the season. Coming into this year, again, does not seem like it's the type of season that we're super high on them. They still are probably one of the best middle-of-the-pack teams in the conference, but because they play in the toughest division of the conference, the East, not looking great for Georgia Southern.
It's not. Georgia Southern got hit this season. Shy Works is gone. Shy Works is the best running quarterback in Sun Belt history, probably. He does own the quarterback rushing record for the conference. And they also lost star safety Kendrick Duncan to the exact same team. Wesley Kennedy's gone. Darian Anderson, they don't really throw the ball much, but he was a good wide receiver. He's gone. It's just a lot that they have to replace. There's a couple pieces in the front 7 that are gone that they're going to have to fill. There's a lot that in a normal college football offseason, this would feel normal. But you've got 4 other teams in that division that's bringing everybody back from last year. They took advantage of that rule. So they're stuck behind the 8 ball. I think, having them 5th in the East, I don't think that's saying Georgia Southern's a bad football team. I think in pretty much every other conference, if you say this team is going to finish last in their division, you're saying they're a 2 or 3 win team. Georgia Southern, any other year, they're probably going to win 6 or 7 games with this team. But they're just not this year. They lose a lot. They have to find a new quarterback. That's the main thing. When you run an offense with a brand new offensive coordinator, that's a triple option. You got to do something different. They got a transfer from Georgia Tech that's going to battle with Justin Tomlin, the backup from last year. They still have J.D. King at running back. They still have Logan Wright. They got a transfer from Tulane. They've got running backs because they're Georgia Southern, but they still have so many holes to fill that we can't right now look at them and say, yeah, they're going to finish ahead of Troy. They're going to finish ahead of Georgia State. They're going to go to a bowl game because they're just missing so much right now.
All right, I pulled up their schedule because I know we were curious because you said that this probably could be a 5-win team. All right, they opened the season against Gardner-Webb. Win or loss? That's a win. Okay. Florida Atlantic.
I can't even say that early. To me, that's a toss-up because I just don't know.
Arkansas.
I just don't know. That's a loss.
Louisiana.
That's a loss.
Arkansas State.
They have a chance there. That can be a win. That could be conference win number 1. I want to say that's a loss, but you never really know.
South Alabama.
That's a loss.
Georgia State.
That's a loss.
Coastal.
That's a loss.
Texas State.
I think, you know what? In one of my newsletters, I wrote I picked the best game of every single week. I picked that one, I want to say, because that was going to be the yearly trap game. That week is trap week. I said Texas State was going to win that game.
Brigham Young, BYU.
That's a loss.
App State.
That's a loss.
So he heard it here first. April, Uh, April, Georgia Southern's a 2-win team. All right, let's move. Let's move on to the West.
There are some toss-ups in there. I say 3 to 5 wins.
Let's talk about the Raging Cajuns, who you compared to a lesser Greek gods of the Sun Belt football. Would you care to expand on that?
Yeah, the other day I was getting ready to write my Louisiana spring preview. I was just going through the roster and I was saying who's back, who's gone. And I knew, of course, Elijah Mitchell and Trey Rakers are gone. That's 90 touchdowns right there. But who else? I'm looking at defense. I'm thinking, okay, Percy Butler's probably gone. And I see Percy Butler's name on the roster. I'm like, okay, he's back. And then I'm thinking, okay, Braylon Trahan was one of the best safeties in the league last year. He's probably gone. He's got to be gone. He's back. And like every name that I could think of, back. The whole defense is back. Levi Lewis is back. They've got an incredibly deep and talented group of wide receivers that are young, fast, and very good. Kyrie Lacey led that team as a freshman in receiving last year. This team is stacked, loaded. Their offensive line was their weak point last year, shockingly. Everybody's back, including they added somebody in the transfer portal. Louisiana Monroe's best offensive player was an offensive lineman, and he is transferred to Louisiana. And
Which should be illegal.
He's joining the mix. He's joining the mix in that offensive line group. This team is loaded. Right now, they are my early favorites to win the Sun Belt. I'll go ahead and put that out there right now. They're probably my number one team. The only issue they have to fix is who they're going to be handing the ball off to. So that's a big part of that offense. But that defense is unreal. Their offensive line looks really strong. And Levi Lewis.
I guess our matching Chanticleer tattoos mean nothing to you. Okay. Look, why are they the lesser then? Because you said the lesser Greek god of the Sun Belt Football Conference. And I will say this.
It's just an expression. I mean, there's no other gods in the Sun Belt, in my opinion. It's right now, it's this roster, this Louisiana roster. These are the Greek gods. Everybody else are just mortal. Coastal Carolina this year, I think, is mortal. Louisiana might go undefeated.
Okay. All right. Write that one down. Mark that for the podcast. All right. Let's talk a little bit about BS hand times. Elijah Mitchell ran a 4.32 at his pro day. And you act like that's
BS hand time. You're talking about running a 4.4.
I think it's closer to a 4.5. I watched this after you sent me this because I was like, no way. There's no way he ran that. And he looks really fast. But also I looked up what a 4.3 actually looks like at the combine. It wasn't a 4.3. So
no, I don't actually think it was a 4.32. I think that when you take in the actual timing, I think it's going to come out closer to 4.41, 4.42. I don't think it's 4.5. I don't think it's anywhere close. But what scares me is that this man, even hand clocked at 4.32, ran loose in the Sun Belt. And when I watched Elijah Mitchell, I didn't think this guy's a speedster. He looks like a strong back to me. Strong lower body, good stiff arm, shifty, great vision. I didn't think speedster. But you're telling me this guy was moving at probably 4 to 4.5 speed the entire season? That's unfair. That's not fair to me.
I'm just saying it would make sense for whoever's hand timing this at Louisiana to, click it a little bit early. So, okay, let's talk about South Alabama here. Another quarterback controversy, a quarterback battle. It seems it's 2021, the year of the quarterback battle. Did Texas State just do it first and everybody else is just a copycat this year? Like, what's the deal?
I think that's how it works. Yeah, I think that it's kind of a cycle. There was a few years ago where we didn't really have a lot of name brand quarterbacks in the Sun Belt. And I think that while it's not really the case this year, we do have a lot of battles. And I think that that's because of the free year. You get guys coming back, and then you get guys added from the transfer portal that creates more competition that wasn't there before. And that's kind of the situation I feel like we're looking at right now. And that's how this South Alabama situation came about. That's exactly how it came about. I mean, I don't think Jake Bentley gets to play this year without the free year.
Well, break it down for us. Explain to us what happened.
Jake Bentley transferred from Utah to South Alabama to play under Kane Womack, the new head coach for the Jaguars. He's going to be battling Desmond Trotter, who beat out What's-His-Face last year for the starting job. What's-His-Face, by the way, transferred to Mississippi State, which is kind of weird. But Desmond Trotter, I think, is a good quarterback. I like Desmond Trotter. I like watching him play. I think he's the best South Alabama quarterback they've ever had, in my opinion. And I think that their wide receiver, Jalen Tolbert, definitely helped them out a lot. But Desmond Trotter to me is a fun quarterback, and he's got Jake Bentley, who has over 6,000 career passing yards, which is wild to me. You're throwing that in against Desmond Trotter. Why? Put Jake Bentley in Monroe. Put him in Texas State. Put him in Arkansas State. Put him somewhere where where he can take over. Well, maybe not Arkansas State, but
maybe not Texas State. You jerk.
Yeah, put him in Texas. I would love to see Jake Bentley at Texas State. I would love that. I want to see Bentley versus McBride. That would be an amazing quarterback battle. Let Desmond Trotter have this football team. But no,
are you kidding me?
Bentley versus Trotter. They have a freshman quarterback that they really like too. So it's shaping up. In my opinion, this is the best quarterback battle in the Sun Belt. I have no idea who's going to win. I have no idea who's ahead. This is going to come down, I think, to week 1. So I'm definitely keeping a very close eye on this one.
Is it going to matter, though? That's what I always ask, like fan bases, and I ask other writers. Does it matter who wins this quarterback battle, Scott? Because if one guy wins and the other guy loses, or vice versa, what is that going to change a game? Is it going to change South Alabama from a team that misses a bowl game to a team that gets into a bowl game? Or does it change them from being a team that ends up playing the first day of the bowl games versus later in December? Like, is it that big of a deal?
I have no idea what kind of ramifications it'll have during the season. The main thing is these kind of battles, they just help the individual. I feel like they really just improve the individual quarterback and make them better. And that's really what coaches, I think, are looking for. I think coaches couldn't really care less who starts. I think they just want to put the best guy out there, but they don't have a preference on person. They want the best player. And if they can bring in somebody else, if they have room to bring in another quarterback that will make both of those players better than they would have been by themselves, they're going to do that. That's exactly what happened with Gunnar Watson. He was a starter all last year. He was solid. And then you bring in a transfer just to push him and just to have that other option. That's what happened. That's what's happening here with Jake Bentley. I don't know what difference it's going to make during the season. Of course, I can't lie. Jake Bentley and Jalen Tolbert together sounds really great. That sounds like a phenomenal combination. But so does Desmond Trotter and Jalen Tolbert. So we'll see how it plays out.
All right. Tell me about my Texas State Bobcats, because I've done the best job ever of getting away from them. I moved 2,000 miles so that I wouldn't have to deal with Texas State anymore. So please fill me in on the offensive line question mark that I'm supposed to get excited for at Texas State. That's hard for me to buy.
It might be hard to buy. I think that it could be one of those situations where you're looking at just because it's experience doesn't mean it's good experience, That's a big thing. But you bring a lot of guys back. And the left tackle, Cooper, he was one of the best freshman tackles in the country last year. He was just flat. I've seen the ratings. He was a very good offensive lineman. And you bring back 3 other starters, and then you add in probably –
I got to stop you. You mentioned ratings. Look, young Sheldon gets ratings. I don't know a single person who watches it. You get left tackles with these really good ratings, and that might matter, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes these ratings are kind of bogus, Scott. You got to admit that.
I don't think they are. I think that because when I looked through the PFF grades for the Troy offensive line, they made sense. They were phenomenally graded on pass blocking and atrociously graded in run blocking, and that made sense because Gunnar Watson didn't hit the ground all that often, but the running backs couldn't find a hole to run through to save their lives. So I think if I'm looking at Cooper and I say, okay, he's got a pretty good grade at left tackle for a freshman. I think him and the Coastal Carolina freshman had the 2 highest freshman grades. I'm going to say that's good. I'm going to believe that's good, that he'd had a good season. So I'm going to stick with Cooper being a good left tackle. And he did start all 12 games. He was one of only 2 offensive linemen for Texas State to start all 12 games at one position. So, and that's the most important position on the offensive line. So I'm going to say that Cooper is a very good offensive lineman, especially to start at that position. To have that trust, to Spavital to trust a freshman to start at left tackle for 12 games, come on. You can't act like he's not good.
Look, you got to think, too. There's not a reason. You have to trust when there's no other options, right? Like if Texas State had other options, they had a senior in the wings, you think they'd be like, yeah, no, send the 18-year-old out there to play against Coastal. Probably not.
I don't know. Whoever starts at right tackle, move him over. He's probably older.
Okay.
That's an option.
Now, okay, hypothetically speaking.
You bring back 3 starters, but I didn't even get to the best part. You add in the best FCS offensive lineman last year, or the year before. They didn't play last year. But Liam Dobson joins the show. All-American FCS lineman. Maybe not the absolute best, but an All-American. You throw him in this mix, and I think that you've got 5 offensive linemen that are going to be much, much better, especially considering you have a brand new offensive line coach who coached in the NFL.
Does it matter? Does it matter that Texas State didn't sign any high schoolers?
Who knows? It feels like an all or nothing kind of bid for Spavital. Maybe try to just fill out the holes. Hopefully he goes high school next year and go and try to fill in underneath these guys. But I don't know. I mean, if you're talking about basketball, Richie Riley has perfected it. He's perfected that whole deal at South Alabama. So how it works in football, I'm not entirely sure. I've literally never seen this happen before.
Yeah, me neither. It's a really nice town. Like, I tell you this every time we do a podcast, but San Marcos is so beautiful. I don't understand how you don't get any 18-year-olds that want to go to that school. Like, it just does that. That to me says that you didn't attempt to sign high schoolers, or you did not do your due diligence to go get high schoolers. Now, it's easy for me to play Monday morning quarterback after signing day and be like, well, you should have got this guy or that guy. Any fan base can do that. But come on. How do you not get anybody? You know what I mean? Like, that just it does not sit right with me.
Yeah, I don't know what the scholarship limit is right now for them. I don't know where they're at. I have no idea. All I know is what they have, and what they have to me looks better than what they had before. They've got experience. They've got talent. They got Power 5 talent now playing on this team. They're a great group. All I know is this. When I go through my phone and I look up a Texas State offensive highlight, it's typically Brady McBride running for his life. So I see this offensive line that is experienced. I see Cooper coming back. I see Liam Dobson coming in. I think, okay, what can Brady McBride do when he's not running from his life? And I feel like we might see that this year. I feel like that would do so much for the development of this team if this offensive lineman finally figure it out. And I think they might do that with Jim Turner as the coach.
He's been so good. He's been so good. Brady has. If you see isolated plays, he looks like a Power 5 quarterback. He looks like a guy who could start for a Power 5 team. But then you put the entire game film together, and it's a really good superhero movie that has like maybe 5 minutes of good dialogue and 95 minutes of CGI fighting. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough. We talked about quarterback controversies. I do want to bring this up because I've heard it through the grapevine. The 2 quarterbacks that Texas State had last year, Brady McBride, Tyler Vitt, they had COVID. They didn't have COVID. It went back and forth. One guy got hurt. The other guy came in, blah, 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 blah. They're living together now. I've heard that they are now rooming together. Now, I've heard really good stories about this where 2 quarterbacks room together and they become great and they study game film together. I am of the opinion that I don't want my quarterbacks living together. I want ultra competitive competition. Where do you stand on this, Scott?
I've literally never heard of 2 quarterbacks or 2 wide receivers or 2 running backs competing against each other and then like just hating each other. I've literally never seen that at the college level. Maybe it's because they can't say anything about it, but they genuinely act like they love each other when they talk about each other. So it's hard for me to say, not living together is the better option when living together seems like it works out, because in a lot of these cases, you see these quarterbacks working together in their dorm rooms by themselves, going over the playbooks together and talking together, doing little flashcards together. I feel like, if that's the system that's always worked, then why stop it?
Okay, let's talk about Arkansas State, who went off. They removed Blake Anderson, or Blake Anderson left, one of the most famous coaches in Sun Belt Conference history, and they replaced it with Butch Jones, who I think everybody really loves. I think everybody in the conference has been really surprised how much we like this guy.
Yeah, this is kind of a recency thing. We see the Tennessee Butch Jones, and we think, okay, that's the kind of coach he is, a failure. He didn't win enough games. Here's the thing.
You said it, not me.
Before Tennessee, Butch Jones was only successful and very successful. Central Michigan, I think, is where he was first in the FBS, and then won a ton of games at Cincinnati. So why wouldn't he succeed in the Sun Belt, honestly? If he can just find that strategy, that game plan, that whatever worked for him at Cincinnati and Central Michigan, do it again. In Arkansas State, I think you can do that. So I feel like that's a good hire. I think at first I was kind of iffy because the meme culture that surrounds Butch Jones is so strong in college football that you just want to say this is not going to work. That they go and they get an established guy that was made fun of for the last 5 years or whatever.
I think it's interesting too because the difference between Butch Jones, who is now the coach at Arkansas State, and Tom Herman, who was at Texas, and both of those guys took over historical programs. Herman clearly more successful than Butch Jones in an easier conference, the Big 12 versus the SEC. But just the way that people talk about Herman versus the way they talk about Butch Jones, I think is really, really interesting. Because technically, I would say Butch Jones is the more successful coach career-wise. He's the older coach, but I think he's had more success. And yet, just like you mentioned, he comes into Arkansas State, and we're like, that's the best job he could get. Like, are we sure that this guy is, like, on the up and up? Do we need to do, like, a psyche eval? Like, why is he moving to Jonesboro? And now, a little bit – get the taste of your mouth in there, and it's like, okay, this makes sense. He's a really good coach. This is a really good stop for him. I don't think he's going to be here for more than 3 years. Do you agree? Do you think he's going to be here longer than a graduating class?
It's tough to gauge that. I definitely don't think that. I think that in order for that to happen, this kind of rebuild will have to be a lot longer than he thinks it's going to be. I think that you'd have to see some attrition that is just unexpected, I guess, for Butch Jones and the fan base. But if not, I think he's probably going to be here for 3 years. I think he could build this group pretty quickly. I think all that really needs to happen is a defense needs to show up that is stout, that can stop people from running up the gut 8 yards a carry. Once that happens, this Arkansas State team goes back to who they are. They'll be contending with Louisiana by not this year, but next year or the year after that. Lane Hatcher is a great start. Antonio Fletcher in the secondary is a great start. They've got guys that are a good starting place for this Arkansas State team. And then you got Butch Jones, who can probably recruit the hell out of the Sun Belt. And we'll see next year. So I don't think it'll take long for Butch Jones to turn it around.
I do want to push back a little bit on this because you mentioned that this is a team and an organization, a program that can get turned around kind of quickly. Looking back on it, hindsight's 2020 here, but you could kind of see the cracks in the armor 2 seasons ago with Arkansas State. And then last year, we were shocked how bad they were. We thought that this was a team that just had a couple bad weeks, and a couple bad weeks turned into a couple bad months, turned into an awful year. And I like Butch Jones. I don't know if this year is going to be like that much better than last year. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen immediately. I think this year, the second place in the West is going to be wide open. Texas State, South Alabama, and Arkansas State are all going to be competing for that second spot right there. I think that 2022 is kind of the year. I think Louisiana is going to lose a lot of people that year. Levi Lewis is going to be gone 2022. We got to find a new Louisiana quarterback that year. Arkansas State, that's probably their chance. I have personally seen a strong football program down on its luck turn around very quickly. Neil Brown did it. We went from 5-7 or 4-8 to 10-3 in 1 year. So I mean, it's possible because Arkansas State has that foundation. I think when you're a school that has the foundation and has the resources and has the drive and want to win football games, it's a lot easier to turn things around.
So our lawyers tell us we're legally obligated to talk about ULM. So Warhawks, are we sure that they're still in the conference? Has Liberty not called yet? Can we not get?
We're not adding Liberty. Stop.
I just saw that they're preseason ranked number 8 right now. So I'm just saying, wouldn't hurt the brand.
Yeah, and that same thing, I think Coastal was ranked, 13th or something, 15th, and Louisiana was 23rd. That should be swapped. Louisiana is a top 15 team, in my opinion. They should be number 15. Coastal probably 20 or 21. Anyway, yeah, ULM, they still exist. They lose so much, and they're so quiet about things. I thought Corey Strider was still on the team. He's not. He's going to the NFL. I thought Josh Johnson was still on the team. He's not. He's going to the NFL. I thought Josh Peterson, he withdrew his name from the transfer portal. So I thought he's back. That's good. He likes the coaching now. He's off to the NFL. So everything they have that was even sort of good last year or the year before, they're gone. There's nothing left. They have the two quarterbacks that battle it out literally every single game, and that's it. They've got literally nothing else. So they have one running back that I like, but it's not even worth getting into. I guess the only thing that that I can really point out here is just the coaching staff is so weird to me. You go and get what's his name? I can't believe I'm already forgetting his name. The head coach. He coached at Akron. Bowden. What was his first name? Something Bowden.
Doesn't matter because I'm only going to look at it once a year.
He was
when ULM plays Texas State.
He was the coach at Auburn or something.
Gus Malzone?
No. Way long time ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, I don't think Gus took that job. More power to him though. That'd be a good one. Look, I think Monroe's really nice this time of the year. I heard that Louisiana Monroe has a really nice library. I think that the students there are very studious. I don't think the football team is going to win many games. And that's going to suck because I'm very curious to see how many fans they can put in the stadium, even with COVID regulations.
Terry Bowden is the coach. This is why I think it's weird. Terry Bowden is the head coach. Rich Rodriguez is the associate head coach. Does that feel like it should be swapped to you?
Associate head coach or assistant head coach?
He's associate. They're the same thing. Associate and assistant's the exact same thing. But
is it? That doesn't sound like if I put associate professor versus assistant professor, like kind of makes a difference. I'm the associate general manager. I'm the assistant general manager. I don't know. Just feels different.
I'll look up his exact title. Okay. He's associate head coach. Should that be swapped though? I feel like Rich Rodriguez should be the head coach of this team, not Terry Bowden.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay, well here's the thing. Terry Bowden came from Akron. Akron is the ULM of the MAC, in my opinion. They have no future. They have no resources. They play in a crappy city, in a crappy stadium. Everybody hates Akron. Akron is worthless. There's nothing about Akron Zips football that makes you think, I want to watch Akron Zips football. And he failed. He failed to do anything in Akron. And so what makes you think, what makes me think, what makes anybody think he's going to come to ULM with no support whatsoever from administration from the university and win football games in the Sun Belt, a significantly better conference? How did Terry Bowden move up the ladder? How did he fail at Akron and then land a job in a better conference?
I don't know what to tell you, Scott, but this happens a lot. I'm sorry that you're just now learning this about college head coaches, but there's a lot of college head coaches that fail upwards. So more power to them, though. ULM, what do you think the over under for their win total will be this year? I think 1.5.
I think their win. I think the ceiling for them is 0. Just kidding. No, there's probably 1. They have to play Deion Sanders' Jackson State team, and that's their best chance. That's their best chance.
They're not going to beat Jackson.
They've got Jackson 2 Power 5 games. They've got 2 Power 5 games. So that's what I'm saying. Their ceiling might be 0 this year. They've got nothing in the cupboard. It's completely bare. They've got a 3 quarterback race. Rich Rodriguez's son, Rhett Rodriguez, transferred from Arizona. He was at Arizona for 4 years, did not a lot. He played a significant amount, I think his junior year or sophomore year. I don't know. But Arizona has sucked the last few years. So who knows? This team, they should leave, but they can't. And ULM without Sunbelt money will fall apart.
So this goes into, and then we'll wrap up on this. This comes up with my great idea that I had during the offseason, was that we do a Hard Knock style show on the worst team, the team that the Hard Knock style show will not affect at all. So we can't do it to Coastal because they're trying to win a conference championship. We can't do it to Louisiana or App State because they're trying to win a conference championship. So last year I thought this would be Texas State. Brady's a fun guy. Vit's a fun guy. Spav's a young guy. Hard Knocks, Texas State would be perfect. And they weren't going to win anything. So it would be ULM would be the perfect Hard Knocks style, do it 13 weeks of it type of show, where you get 13 weeks of like behind the scenes type of stuff with an organization. So start in the summer, go into like second or third conference game. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't like really affect you that much, but it affects you enough. ESPN Plus, call me.
Yeah, I'll email ULM, see if they'll give us access to their football team for the next 7 months or whatever.
I think it'd be fun. I think they would do it. All right. Sign up for the newsletter. Continue to look for this podcast because as more things happen, we'll do more stuff. Watch the NFL draft and look for Sunbelt players. And we're probably going to do a podcast after that, Scott, talking about like where Sunbelt players went in the NFL draft because there might be a couple.
There should be. I really hope there are. In the past years, it's always been players that I just didn't expect. Louisiana had a couple defensive backs get drafted a couple years ago that I just like. I had players listed like these are the guys that might get drafted, and then none of them got taken. But then these two defensive backs did, and it was weird because Louisiana was terrible in pass coverage the year before. So I don't know. Anything can happen. I think Teron Jackson's a lock. I would love to see Jay Adams get drafted, but there's a million wide receivers to choose from. So, yeah, it should be fun. Teron Jackson, day 2.
All right, Scott, thanks so much.
Thank you.